Hello and welcome to week 6. As I start to navigate towards our syllabus so that we can check out our learning outcomes for this week and what we'll be working on, I just want to send out a couple of reminders. One, that your midterm grades were turned in last week. So the grades that you see in Blackboard should be what you guys see, and I'm not sure what portal you use for your grades, but it should all be there and it should all match. Please note that in your grade column in Blackboard, it will show you the total points that you've earned and your letter grade. So it's not necessarily saying that those points equal, like if it's 70 points, it's not saying that 70 is an A. It's just saying that you've earned 70 points, which is an A based on the number of points that have been possible so far. So check your grades. If you have any questions, please let me know. Everyone's off to a great start, so thank you for that. And on that note, for the most part, the only time that any points will be not given for grades will be if you're not completing your discussion boards by the deadline, or if I'm checking your interactive notebook and that's not completed. For some of you guys in some of the weeks, parts of your discussion board were not completed, so you may have left a piece of it blank. So just know that if it's not completed in its entirety, you start to lose a couple of points. So you can check out your grade column in Blackboard to see how many points you've been given so far, and that will continue on through the rest of the semester. So please make sure that you are completing your discussion board and your 2 replies. Please also make sure that you're completing your interactive notebook, and that I'm checking in on those and I can see them updated so you guys don't have to do anything to share those. And then I will be updating your grades weekly, and we're already in week 6, so we don't have a whole lot of time left. So please know that if you have work that's not completed by the Sunday 11:59 deadline, you can absolutely turn it in late, but know that it will be 2 points off per day late. Now, your discussion boards and your interactive notebooks are not individually worth a whole lot each week. As a whole, it adds up quickly. So just know that if you're turning it in late, you may have a couple points off, which is not going to be great for that week's grades. Overall, hopefully it won't make that huge of an impact if you have a couple times where you're not able to make that deadline. All right, getting into week 6, I just want to touch base on a couple of things. So let's go ahead and check out our learning outcomes. So this week you're going to continue to collaborate and reflect on now teacher-created assessments, formative assessments, and standardized testing. You're also going to continue to apply those growth mindset and assessment concepts in the field. You're going to continue to extend those thoughts and those practices into your field experiences through your interactive notebooking, through your assessment groups, through just your observations in your day-to-day. And then you're also going to carry out intervention sessions for your students where you're again applying those growth mindset concepts and your assessment concepts as well. You're going to be working through your classroom assessment textbook, chapters 11 through 13, your interactive notebook, of course, your assessment notebook, and your discussion board. So if we go back into our weekly content, you should be able to see week 6 now. And this will take us in. Right now, there's just a discussion board because the rest is our interactive notebook piece, really. But let's take a look at our discussion board to see what you're asked to do. So once you finish reading those chapters, I want you to think about the 3 chapters as a whole. So you're going to answer these 4 prompts as it relates to all of your readings, not just each chapter. So once you've completed, you're going to respond to the following protocol. So number 1, I want your insight. I want you to share what the most significant idea was for you from chapters 11 through 13. If you want to share one from each chapter, you are more than welcome, but I'm only asking for 1 out of those 3 chapters as a whole. Then experience. Tell us about why you chose that idea. Why is it meaningful or significant for you? Why did that stand out? Tell us about implications. Share what implications of learning are for students, teaching, parents, staff, schools, classrooms, etc. How are those roles and people in those roles impacted by what your biggest takeaway was. So you don't have to, again, share for each of those roles, but pick one or two or a couple and just kind of explain how the part that was most significant for you, what does that mean for those people? And then number 4 is a now what. So what have you learned from this idea, the biggest idea that you took away from those chapters, and what do you want to try either in your practice now or as a classroom teacher when you have your own classroom? So those 4 items are what you're going to respond to once you've read those first 3 chapters. So that is the only item that currently is in your week 6 content folder. This video will be uploaded soon. And then the rest of your work for this week is to read those chapters 11, 12, 13. Each chapter has its response in your interactive notebook that you're submitting. And so just a quick little note about the chapters. So chapter 11 about teacher-developed assessments really is kind of a connection to that formative assessment piece in chapter 12, because everything, in my opinion, everything that we do as teachers is a formative assessment on some level, meaning that it should inform your instruction. We should not be asking students to complete tasks that are insignificant or just busy work. It should be something that really informs us as teachers as to how students are learning the content that we are trying to teach. So if we're giving them busy work and then we don't grade the papers, or we just kind of check things off and it's just goes in a pile that we then send back home, that really isn't benefiting anyone. Yes, it's practice for the students, but we need to be intentional about the work that we're asking our students to do. So chapter 11 talks about teacher-developed assessments. We want to make sure that teachers are developing assessment tools that are meeting the standards, that are meeting the rigorous expectations of assessment. So if students are expected to know the content and the information at a certain level of understanding, you should have talked about Bloom's taxonomy in some previous classes. You want to make sure that your assessment is the same. And so if we're expecting students to perform and to show their understanding at this level, but we're assessing them down here at this level, then we're not really going to have an accurate formative assessment if we're not expecting them to do the same work. So this chapter is really helpful for us to realize as teachers how we need to best prepare our students and develop our own assessments. Chapter 12 is about formative assessments, which, like I said, then connects back to your teacher-developed assessments. And it's really, helping us with some strategies on effective formative assessments, what best practices are for the types of assessments, types of questions that you're going to ask, how often to give them, and what your purpose is in giving formative assessments. The biggest thing, both with teacher-developed assessments and formative assessments for me, is that they're really connecting to those learning progressions. So there's your key word for this week, learning progressions. And in those chapters, we talk about learning progressions as kind of our stepping stones as students are learning content to get to that end goal. So really, it's another way to think of it almost as mastery learning. So it is that students have to know A before they know B, before they know C, and they get all the way to Z. It's making sure that we are providing teacher-developed and formative assessments that are supporting students as they build their content knowledge to get to that final standard. So those learning progressions are important to know. We have to know the learning progression, the order of understanding, and the order of content and standards to be able to effectively assess our students so that they're able to meet that highest level of understanding. And then standardized testing is something that we all have to work with at different levels. So even at the primary level, some of our EOGs and our benchmark assessments are standardized assessments that we're giving often. But then once we get into our state testing grades, of course, those are the most well-known standardized assessments. And so really taking a look at those and digging deeper into why are they created the way that they are, What is their intention on giving these assessments? How is the test administration structured like it is, or why is it structured like it is? So there's a lot to kind of peel away the layers to standardized testing. So once you've read those 3 chapters, just kind of step back and take a look at all the information that you've just read. And then I want you to pick 1 or maybe 2 of the most significant ideas from your chapters. And then you're going to respond to those 4 questions within your protocol. So that's it for this week. You have your reading, your interactive notebook for each of those 3 chapters, your discussion board, and that's about it. This is kind of an in-between week where, for me, your focus should be on your assessment groups, and you should be working on making sure that you're meeting those expectations of your intervention groups. So we have a couple weeks left. So if you're struggling with that, I know we have a couple of you that are still not in placements, and I promise you that we are working on that, and we will modify as we need to for you. But if those of you who are practicing in your assessment groups, please let me know if you have any questions or any kind of roadblocks. And I'm excited to see what's happening with those intervention groups as you're applying those growth mindset concepts from our initial book study and then these best practices in classroom assessment. I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you're doing well in your assessment groups and that you're finding this information relevant to what you are doing in your assessment group, hopefully what your partner teachers are doing in their classroom, and then what you hope to do as a classroom teacher. Have a great week.